Hello and a very warm welcome to ET Auto. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this session of a roundtable discussion with senior automotive industry professionals around the theme of accelerating design, innovation, and collaboration for the automotive industry. And as we all are aware, we are in the midst of a very interesting, exciting, disruptive, and challenging era. This is part of the whole evolution process of the automobile stroke mobility industry. And technology is playing an ever increasing crucial role. And we all know the automotive industry has been a kind of a playground for technology and innovation. And in current times, the role of technology, the role of the importance, the value of collaboration is more crucial than ever before. So manufacturing and product design professionals are faced with, I can say, maybe a monumental challenge of working remotely while continuing to bring out innovation, incorporate innovation in their products, and bring them faster to the market, and especially at a time when the overall product life cycle is also witnessing kind of a shrinking trend, and people need the newness in products more than ever before. And designers and engineers they require, and analysts also, they require massive models to be processed efficiently so they can innovate, iterate, and solve problems at a very fast pace. In fact, it could be almost like at the speed of light. So this is the kind of speed we are talking about, and the key is enabling teams to work whenever and wherever with massive data sets. And of course, we all know, as in various developments within the vehicle is also, and also in the overall engineering process, the role of software, the role of graphics applications is on the rise. So to discuss all the kind of developments happening around design, innovation, and collaboration in the automotive industry, we are joined by a panel of very qualified and experienced industry professionals. And it is my honor to introduce them, and starting with Dr. Shankar Venugopal, who is the Vice President at Mahindra & Mahindra. We have Mr. Mohan Savarkar, who is the Vice President at Tata Motors Passenger Vehicles. Both of them will share not only their company's perspective, but also the OEM's perspective in this discussion, which I'm very sure will be an extremely engaging and interesting and insightful discussion. So, and we are also joined by Mr. Meenakshi Sundaram, who is the CTO at the Amalgamations Components Group. And he also wears the hat of CEO of the joint venture IPL Shaw Solutions. And last but not the least, we are joined by Mr. Nikhil Parab, who is the head of the Pro Visualization business of NVIDIA in India. So welcome to this session, gentlemen. Thank you very much for sparing your time to be with us here on ET Auto. And a warm welcome to all the attendees who have logged in to this session. And what I can assure you, going by my prior experience of interacting with the gentlemen who are here as panelists, I can assure you it's going to be an extremely informative, insightful, and engaging discussion. The challenge for me will be to stick to the timeline of and cover all the discussion topics within an hour, because as I said, the gentlemen that are here, who are here in the panel, I'm pretty sure we may run out of time, but nonetheless, let me start off with an OEM perspective, starting with Mr. Mohan Savarkar. Mohan, part of the theme is also talking about design, accelerating design, and the role of design in the automotive industry. When I mean, the company you represent is in terms of its the passenger vehicle business turnaround, design played a very key role. Now you have design teams in India, in Europe. So tell us how easy or how challenging was the job to ensure that you do not only the engineering design but also the vehicle design, sitting with teams working almost seamlessly, which is a necessity, working seamlessly, but sitting in different parts of the world, and especially during the pandemic.
So thank you, Sumantro, and a very pertinent question. Actually, there's a saying that, if your mom can look at a car across a football field and then say, I want this one, then you are done. Then you have done the design. Okay. So if this is the kind of expectation that people have from design, and design is something actually that would get people into a showroom and near the car, make them feel like touching the car, then your design is done. So over the years, we have been evolving in terms of our design language through what we call as design 1.0, 2.0, and now moving to 3.0. But these are longer term steps. In between, we follow something called New Forever. And under this, we try to bring in very frequent interventions, which are very topical in nature, but also relevant to what is happening in the market, providing continuous upgrades as our consumers start experiencing newer things, their tastes keep changing. So this is something that we feel is extremely essential for evolution of design language through multiple interventions. So it's all necessary, very necessary to make sure that customers keep coming back to you, and newer and newer customers keep coming back to you. So having said that, like you mentioned, Sumantro, we have teams across geographies and time zones. And when we are doing, let's say, design exercises, it's very essential for us to be able to work seamlessly, because it's not possible to have just the design team running to complete the job. It needs to have inputs from several people, including how we would like to configure the final product as the customer would see it. What is it that the designers are seeing in terms of trends, and what is new in the automotive world. So
and what would be feasible at the manufacturing line also.
Right. At the same time, as the design evolves, we need to make sure that we check for feasibility and to make sure that only those things which are good for everyone in the let's say ecosystem, but more so for the customers, are the ones that make it finally into the design. And you can imagine the kind of discussions that happen, and sometimes very hot ones. But all said and done, it needs to be customer first, and the trends that need to be kept in mind. Because when we're designing a car, it's always 4 years hence that the design will hit the market, and then it needs to stay current for the next 6 years. So it is that much more foresight that's required at the design phase. So it's very interesting work. Thank you.
And how did you leverage technology to kind of bridge the to ensure to enable seamless working across these teams, across these time zones and geographies?
So actually during this pandemic, we all got tested, and one of the ways was to make sure that the let's say work doesn't stop. So all of our employees were asked to take their machines home and use strong data connections at home to make sure that they stay connected to the way the company is working, and no work stops, and collaboration happens digitally. So actually, in many cases, we saw that productivity improved rather than going down.
Oh, I see.
Because maybe there was no interference, which is normal when you're coming to office. So when people had uninterrupted time to work on their own, maybe output was better. And people had to take, of course, special effort to understand each other when collaborating over digital mediums. And that's something that all of us had to learn to begin with. But looks like now we are okay, and maybe we are also good at it. And this is not something that comes in the way today. It works very nice.
That's interesting to note that no, in fact, productivity has no kind of gone up, which is in some cases could be contrary to popular belief also. But staying with the design, Dr. Shankar, design, as Mohan mentioned, it plays a very, very crucial role. And there are examples in your in Mahindra's portfolio also of that. But having said that, design is also is part of the core IP of an organization. So when people work from home, work remotely, how did you kind of ensure that the organization's IP and things are are secure and protected?
I will definitely answer that. Before that, I want to add two more points, building on what Mohan shared. Okay, when you talk about design, both the vehicle design and also the engineering design aspects, we always looked at design for reliability, design for manufacturability, design for cost, and so on. But what has become really very important, especially in this last 2 years, with all of us seeing the impact of COVID, design for sustainability suddenly has become the top priority. Everybody is seriously looking at how sustainable is my product, not only at the product level, but also how sustainable are the processes that I use, the manufacturing process, even the design process. People are looking at sustainability all the way till end of life. Am I able to really recycle and reuse every single thing that goes into my vehicle? So that's one point I wanted to add in terms of the emerging importance of design for sustainability, both in the context of IC and also all the more in the context of electric vehicles.
Right.
The second point that I wanted to highlight is a slightly different take on design. So I wanted to focus on design thinking itself, more than just the externally visible design. How we can think like designers. End of the day, we are engineers. We tend to think like engineers, very analytical and very reasoning based and very, very straight. Whereas a designer takes the freedom to think in a little non-linear way, and that's where he gets all his creativity from. So is there a way for us engineers to learn from designers and copycat them, at least during the early stages of ideation? This is what was my initial trigger. Then I get to work with a lot of very young engineers. When they joined the Mahindra Research Valley, the first few months, they spent a lot of their time with me. So what we did, created a small program on design thinking for automotive engineers, where the core is to get to know the customers as closely as possible. In the case of automotive, it's relatively easier. In the case of farm, it's a lot more difficult because they have to go live in the village, interact with the farmers. That's when they'll be able to design the right tractors and the implements.
You have to get
So
far more customer and application insights than compared to the passenger vehicle.
Absolutely, absolutely. Luckily, Mahindra Research Valley is at the edge of the city, so it's not too difficult for us to visit some of the villages nearby. But we started building rapport with the farmers so that we can understand what are the real pain points and constraints. And that was the very first thing we did. Before giving them any engineering yarn at the Mahindra Technical Academy, we made them spend a few weeks working with both the customers in the automotive and also in the farm space, and then encourage them to come back and do some brainstorming based on what are those problems that they heard from there. And where we focused a lot was on very fast prototyping. We gave them 3D printers and all those things so that the ideas won't remain on PPT for long. Very quickly, they'll be able to make a crude sample of what they are talking about and also show it to their potential customers and say, is this what you are looking at? will this really address your needs, kind of things. These are not very large scale 3D printing the size of a football we can do. These are very low cost 3D printers that these young students can just go ahead and play around and explore a lot of things. And once the prototyping is done, very quickly they can iterate and move forward to a very appropriate solution which addresses the problem but also reasonably priced and stuff like that. So that's where we spent a lot of time, especially in the last 2 years. Design thinking took off in a very big way. And a lot of our young engineers really find it, they like it a lot actually. They really enjoy working on those design thinking projects. And that has paid us a lot of dividends. So to the extent now we confidently talk about something called REM, rational needs of the customers, emotional needs of the customers, and the meaningful needs of the customers. The third one is the most tough. Because many times the customer themselves don't know what exactly are the meaningful, those deep needs, sense of purpose, sense for meaning in whatever they are trying to do.
Many a times there are unstated needs.
Unstated
OEMs
needs,
who can
sometimes unstated to even themselves. Even they have not thought about it because they are so busy. So we have to slowly work with them to get into that space. And if you're able to do that, that's the best way to bond with your customer, and they will stay connected with you forever. So this was the most interesting thing that we did in recent times, and that is already paying us good dividends. And this is something I thought I should share at this forum so that many more people can try it out and benefit from that. Sure. And coming back to the question that you asked in terms of IP and protection and stuff like that, that's become a way of life. Initially, there were a few people who expressed concerns about this, but maybe it took just a month or two to get over all these things and come up with very safe practices where one can confidently go ahead, share a lot of information over the internet, and go work. Because we started doing globally distributed product development even before that. But people are still kind of slowly getting used to that mode of working. But in this COVID work from home, all that got accelerated very fast, and people started working across time zones and geographical locations, became a lot more easier actually. So the IP concerns initially were there for the first 1 or 2 months, but very quickly they all got addressed. So I didn't see much
and
of
when
that.
it comes to protecting the intellectual property rights, I think technology also played a role in terms of having stronger firewalls and things like that to ensure that it remains safe. Absolutely.
Very tight processes. So the IT really acted very fast. They put all the measures and safety practices in place, also built awareness among people to tell why we are doing that. Once people understood the intent behind it, everybody got onto the game.
Acceleration of new ways of working, and as Mohan also pointed out, perhaps not only new but perhaps more efficient ways of working have also taken place, and technology has aided that. And also what is getting accelerated is also the trend of collaboration, not necessarily by only the pandemic, but also as part of the evolution process of the industry. From a time where there was, collaborations few and far in between, and which was a kind of exception to becoming a norm, but to today it's becoming a necessity. So here, let me bring in another speaker, Mr. Meenakshi Sundaram, because as I was doing some research, I found that amalgamations is one of the groups in the automotive industry in India, which is really kind of a very in quick succession have gone ahead and done a lot of, have adopted this route or strategy of collaboration, both in the conventional, traditional ICE vehicles, as well as part of its sustainable growth strategy on the EV side also. So from after treatment systems to motors maybe. So Meenakshi, tell me, in terms of collaboration and its role in the automotive industry, what are your first initial kind of experience, and what drove amalgamations to take this approach? Because if I'm not wrong, amalgamations is part of the, you can say, the conservative side of would fall in the list of conservative companies who do it more the traditional way, very process driven, things like that, and not too many collaborations earlier. But in quick succession, you have done quite a few collaborations.
Thank you, Sumantra. First of all, I would say that yes, amalgamation is conservative with respect to money and how we want to spend it, but with respect to customers, whether it's Tata or Mahindra, we have always gone to them and what they need, we have made it. For example, our founder chairman has started to the automotive industry, so he has done it. Maybe I would say our founder chairman in his 55 years, he made 42 companies, but all Indian made, almost Indian made. He just took the technology from somewhere and he started his own. So that's how it started. So collaboration is not new, but collaborating with people is new. Collaborating with technology was not new. So when we thought about before pandemic, like 2018, we met there in our corporate office. So 2018, we decided that we have to drive 2 horses because IC engine is going on. When it will go down, we don't know. The EV is going to pick up. Number one, I would like to say 2018, we decided to run 2 horses, IC engine and EV. But IC engine, the existing R&D will do. But when you're looking at EV, the experiences are very less. We didn't do any hybrid program. We are traditionally a mechanical-oriented component company. So we decided to do collaboration with Japan for motors and controllers. And we decided to do for the battery cell technologies, going to the US and looking for lithium polymers and lithium to UK. It's been a traditionally, so we have a good base in UK. So we went ahead to UK and trying to do autonomous vehicle systems. I'm not saying autonomous vehicles. I'm making clear autonomous vehicle systems. So we put together radars, lidars, and small programs to see how the agricultural vehicle can run. So we started working on wherever we could possibly do automotive in a component level. We never wanted to make vehicle, right? So that one with the e-drive or whatever we need to make. Agricultural side, we have to make components. We have to go ahead and see what vehicles our group can make. So we did more than 7 or 8 collaborations in pandemic time. So that's a sweet spot for us. I would say we spent a lot of time in teams talking to people abroad, not only India. So the collaboration happened within the company. We were all, as Patra said, very conservative. And we tried collaborating within the company first. It was very, very difficult. So we didn't believe that we can do work from home. Then second is we worked with suppliers. Then we worked with technology partners. We'll speak more as we go ahead. Thank you.
Right. And before we talk about technology partners, and let me bring up the first poll question of this session. So I would request my colleague to please show us the first poll question, and I request all the attendees to please share your response to this poll over the next 10 seconds or so, and let's see what the responses are. The sense I get is that yes, so there we are. The respondents have said about 27% of the respondents say that their engineering and design team has a size of more than 200 people. Largest segment is of companies with up to 550 people in their engineering and design team. That's about 53% of the respondents in this session, and 20% say it's 50 to 200 members. So while we are at it, why don't we show the second question of the second poll question of this session? I would request my colleague to please share that question also. Have you tried virtualization? I would request again all the attendees to please share your response, because I would suspect that it is on, I mean, if not 100%, at least no, a majority, a large majority would vote yes to this, I guess. So let's see what the poll results show. 56%, 44%. Oh, that's interesting. Perhaps some of the businesses do not require so much of virtualization, but good to see. But nonetheless, it's 56% of the respondents have said yes. So talking about virtualization, let me bring in Nikhil Parab from NVIDIA. Nikhil, you know, when it comes to virtualization, I mean, like we are doing this whole, having this panel discussion, roundtable discussion virtually, right? So it is becoming a part, kind of a name of the game almost in terms of many aspects of the industry. So how do you see this trend progressing, and what are the key kind of highlights that you kind of pick up?
So, okay. So even before I get to your answer, first and foremost, thank you very much for having me on the panel. I am currently sticking out as a sore thumb on this panel because I'm not an actual manufacturer. But what happens is NVIDIA, when it comes to design, right? NVIDIA is 100% the platform of choice for anything that you ever want to design with. Secondly,
so you play the enabler's role. You're not a
I am a total, I'm totally an enabler's role. And my whole idea of being on this panel was to actually get to hear from the experts, the actual people that do design, get feedback. But coming back to your question, virtualization. Virtualization is predominantly a technology that has been around for quite some time. People have been virtualizing. Companies like the VMware, Citrix, the Nutanix have been built on the virtualization as a product offering. But if you ever look at virtualization, right? If you ever ask people, hey, in your organization, have you done virtualization? The very simple reaction is that, hey, yes, my HR people, my sales people, my accounts people, all of these teams have been virtualized. They don't need a lot of compute resources. They have been virtualized. But if you ever ask for the design users, right? Typically, if you look at the design user setup or a design team in any of your manufacturing setups, right? These guys would be people who would be asked to come to the office. They would be, given like these really high-end resource heavy workstations to work on. They would be sitting together, collaborating on the same shop floor and trying to design. Now, so typically these people who needed a lot of GPU or a lot of compute resources were never really virtualized, right? But when you talk about even before the pandemic era, enterprises were already thinking about, hey, how do we get people to collaborate more? How do we get people to work from anywhere? Terms like bring your own device, etc. To work from on any device was all pretty prevalent. But then the pandemic hit us, and all these technologies that were good to have became a must-have, right? And for anyone to basically have a successful virtual work strategy or a remote work strategy or a work from home strategy, there were 4 key pillars that were really, really important to be satisfied, right? And this is my perspective, or this is what we have been seeing. Now, for a successful remote strategy, the first important pillar was around mobility. You had to be able to let people work from anywhere on any device. Like how Mohan described, one of the knee-jerk reactions was, hey, when people are working from home, they no more have the luxury of having those high-end systems. So as a knee-jerk reaction, a lot of organizations, not just Tata Motors, a lot of organizations basically shipped their workstations to the user's home, right? But that followed with another problem, like, hey, maybe the bandwidth wasn't really great, so they had to up their bandwidth as well and stuff like that, right? But that came with its own challenges. So mobility is a key pillar. The second pillar was around performance, right? Just because people were working from home, it was not expected that, hey, you do substandard work or, your efficiency level drops. So your performance really needs to be up to the mark, even irrespective of where you're working from, on what device you're working from. The third thing that you rightly brought about, the third pillar that, you rightly brought about was around security, right? Like you said, design is the core IP of any organization. It would give any organization sleepless nights if they knew that, hey, their data is going to flow out of their secure premises into the user's home, and it's an ambiguity. So you needed to make sure that the data was secure when it leaves your facility, right? And the fourth pillar was predominantly around manageability. Now, for example, someone very nicely explained this. For example, if you had a design team of, let's say, 100 users sitting in a single location, post-pandemic, which was being managed by, let's say, around 2 IT people, 100 people being managed by around 2 IT persons. Suddenly, post-pandemic, what started happening was you suddenly had 100 office locations because everybody was working from home. Now, managing these 100 locations for those 2 IT people also became a lot of challenge. So, it had to be manageable as well. Just because you could work from anywhere did not mean that you can do it, right? So basically, any technology that did not ask enterprises to compromise on any of these pillars, is what resulted in a successful virtualization strategy. Now, of course, at NVIDIA, I mean, if I look at it from a GPU standpoint, when I said when people work on design, 100% people use GPUs on their systems, be it on their laptops, on their desktops, on their workstations, they have a GPU. Now, there had to be a technology that did not ask you to compromise on any of the first 4 pillars we spoke about, and also make sure that the GPU was available to the users exactly like how it was available in the office premises. And that is where virtualization really took off. NVIDIA has this solution called the graphics virtual GPU technology. And I think that really helped people to virtualize their design set of users. Okay. So, I mean, that was my answer to, how virtualization is basically helped.
And you touched upon GPUs. Staying with GPUs, let me request my colleague to kind of bring up the next question, which is around the application or usage of GPUs. So request all attendees to please respond to this poll question. Basically, what do you use the GPUs primarily for today? Design, simulation, data science, and AI/ML, or all of the above? Let's see what the responses were like. Okay, I said, okay, 40% of the respondents have said all of the above, which is data science and AI/ML, simulation, design. Another 40% of respondents say it's design, and 13% say they use it for data science and artificial intelligence and machine learning, and 7% say it's for simulation. Interesting responses there. Great, and good to see that 40% have said they use it for all of for design, simulation, and data science and AI/ML as well. Great, thank you for your responses, all attendees. So with that, let me come back again to get the OEM perspective. Mohan, if I may ask you, this has been, it's not a new trend anymore. It's been going there for some time. As in, I'm talking about the trend of shortening of product life cycles. So while this is happening across the globe, there's a need for OEMs to bring products faster to market, and therefore the enhanced need to simulate them as well as possible, to simulate the final version as soon as possible at the design stage itself. And also, of course, and when you have these concepts and make the real kind of final product as close as possible to what it was conceptualized as, designed as. So tell us, what routes, what processes, what practices are you adopting to be able to do this? Bring products faster to market, simulate the final version as accurately as possible at the design stage itself. What are the levers you are pulling?
Sure. So let me try. So see, firstly, one needs to keep in mind that when you say a product, people generally assume that you're going to make everything new every time. And that's not actually necessary. So for example, one may now say that, let's say platforms are something that's now available with most OEMs for most users. So that if you take that as a given, and then the product development actually is basically either a top hat or a new powertrain or a new aggregate getting into it. I mean, like you recently saw us bringing out the Altroz DCA. So that itself has actually shrunk timelines by quite a bit to begin with. Okay. Now, having said that, then the next step will be that there used to be a traditional NPI process that required you to make sketches and go with 6, go with 3, go with 1 in the design phase. And those are steps that could actually be shrunk quite a bit. And by the way, people these days also get vendors on board early enough, much more so for the technology vendors. So if there is a let's say automatic going to come in your car, you better have that vendor much early, so that most things in terms of packaging, performance, marrying to each other, expecting, let's say matching expectations with each other, all that can be.
That set of suppliers become more of partners than suppliers, maybe.
True, very true, very true. And that set of suppliers is actually increasing quite a bit. So this is one set of thoughts. Okay, the second set is these days, by the way, hardware is not a differentiator. or is not likely to be a differentiator for long henceforth. So which means that one actually needs to get into the software part and see how we can use that to do the differentiation. And therefore, the software cycles then become more important than the hardware cycles in terms of how long it takes to develop.
Right. Right.
And let's say if you're taking it on an aggregate from someone which is already ready, then the skill lies in being able to do the software fast enough with respect to the use cases that you have in mind. Of course, all of us have tons of data from the past, which can then help you, leverage AI into making sure that your designs are already good enough by the time they get into engineering. And so the next steps therefore become that much more faster. And most of us have actually dropped one full cycle of making prototypes. So these days the basic prototype has vanished. So
Okay.
you would these days end up making just the final kind of prototype for validation, and even then it is less validation and more verification.
Oh, I see.
Looking at this, and it actually does help us to crash timelines quite a bit.
Great.
And-
Just to get an idea, how much have you able to kind of knock off from the how much time have you been able to knock off from the overall development cycle?
Okay, so part of it is secret sauce, which can't be shared so much on public media.
Okay.
But let's say the pace of the products that we are bringing to market, if that is some indication, then it is quite a bit of crunching that's taking place.
Can I try to put some more words from a component perspective? Earlier, whenever we used to design a new product, people used to push us that 80-20 reuse. We're really said that, can you not make something new? Why are you again and again giving me the same thing? But during the pandemic, and then the collaboration started happening more, even from OEM side, can you reuse the same thing and get me something which is better? But better is always there. That's not being compromised. Better, reliable, sustainable, as doctor said, for sure. Said, can you please change the materials, but keep everything same, give it to me. Don't try to do a new design or extremely new designs. So we were accepted by OEMs or encouraged by OEMs to do a lot of 90-10 reuse from 80-20 reuse during that period. But I do see that the pressure is coming now that we need to go from 90-10 to going back to 70-30 or 60-40, because the life is changing very rapidly towards electrification, hybridization. The reuse is not going to work as much as maybe others can comment. Thank you.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective that you have added, Meenakshi. Let me get Dr. Shankar's viewpoint on that. So therefore, is the ratio going to change? I mean, what is it? What's the thought process at, let's say, M&M?
The time for bringing out new products is going to definitely shrink significantly for at least three distinct reasons. Okay. One is our own experience. We have trained now a lot of our engineers in data science and analytics, which they are not very familiar with earlier. But in the last 3 years or so, we made sure that every group has a few people who are very comfortable in using data science analytical tools, with which they are able to pull out a lot of past data and extract useful insights from that, with which they are able to avoid certain loops and then able to quickly accelerate the development. And as Mohan referred to, we are also slowly started bringing in AI-assisted decision making, especially at the early stages when things are a bit fuzzy and we don't have all the data to make very precise decisions. Then use of AI tools are helping a lot. So that is one distinct direction, which is telling that more and more it's going to be helping us to shrink the time. Second is in terms of the technology itself, when we get into EV, a lot of it is modular, and we talk about a skateboard architecture where the battery pack is in the floor and the motors and the electronics will be in the four wheels. So the functional elements are more or less already there on a plate. Then we are talking about a top hat, which could be different designs that comes. That's what the customer is going to see many times. And so the design, the integration, everything is becoming a lot more easier, which will make it faster. The third is the manufacturing. the manufacturing methods, and people are now very comfortable using a lot of the connectivity in a factory environment, and industry 4.0 is really picking up speed. Even we have a few factories which have a very high level of automation. These are not only the new ones, even the old ones, we are able to bring in good level of connected features in that. So I am seeing a shrinkage of new product development time from three perspectives. One is from a data analytics perspective. Second is from the EV tech perspective. And the third is from the advanced manufacturing and the connected environment that's coming up in our manufacturing plants. All these are converging to very significantly reduce the time that you take to bring a new product out.
At this stage now, let's drop the fourth poll question of this session. So I would request my colleague to please show us what the question is. Okay, in line with what we were just discussing, do you have a data science stroke artificial intelligence stroke machine learning practice in your organization? So request all attendees to share your response. Okay, let's see what the attendees say. It's not surprising. The majority of them say, yes, we have a data science or AI and ML practice. So interesting.
I wanted to put one point when the question was going on, AI and ML. As Dr. Shankar said, a lot of analytical tools are getting into picture during this time, and we are making decision making at the early stage with AI. And Mr. Mohan said that there are a lot of collaboration happened at home and basically back and forth, or maybe countries together. So from a tier 1 perspective or a component engineering perspective, earlier a lot of money was spent in testing, and OEM asked no question asked, we spend it. Oh, customer wants to do the testing, even though we were confident about the reliability in design stage, we do more testing. But now again, I'm saying the OEM support came in. Okay, if you're confident, you have some kind of good confidence over your simulation. Can we go ahead? Yes, we can go ahead. So what happened? Our management started giving more money on IT infrastructure and softwares. I'm not only saying operating system softwares. Earlier, we were just spending money on operating system softwares. But today, we started thinking about, can we get some small analytical tools? Can we train more people? Is there a possibility that we can convince customers with more of verification? As again, Mr. Mohan said, more verification, less testing, but spend the money. This is not for saving the money. So all we are trying to do is saving time. So time is money for us. We could bring back 10 products in 1 year. Earlier, it was 4 or 5. So the thinking towards investing money on analytical tools have gone up. So the right time the question came in. Thank you.
Okay. No, in fact, I was anyway coming to you in terms of since we are talking about adoption of AI, ML, and also basically making vehicles and systems and even components smart, or if they are already smart, make them smarter. So tell us, what any new examples of where you are able to, or where you're seeing that, witnessing that perhaps this more and more these areas of, let's say, these sets of components or systems are candidates to get or become smart next with the adoption of technology.
You're asking me?
Yes.
Yeah. See, mostly during the wave 2, I would say we started spending more time because BS6 was out, and we spent a lot of money in noble metals in exhaust after treatment systems. We had to find ways to optimize it, but you can't reduce it. You can only optimize it because the emissions are emissions, and the system costs were high. And we were for sure that first 2 years, people are not worried about DPF choking or what is going to happen. We don't know, because right into the 2020, we were getting into not running the vehicles much. So we had to do a lot of work in understanding the noble metal loading. This was little before the real raw material prices hiked, because we know eventually we had to go back to OEMs and talk. When we have to stand in front of them, we should have a value. Forget about the price. The value should be there. So there are a lot of discussions on using simple AI tools and our own programs which are linked to AI tools to make decisions on diversity, SCR, or probably what kind of selection of component versus loading of noble metals was a real example which we used. But that's again through collaborators. I would say, do you say that I used it alone? No, we have had people from UK giving us their experience. So there are some data sets are needed to make the decision. So we had used a lot of collaborators, but technical collaboration. Again, During the pandemic, what happened? There was no manufacturing intent. I couldn't bring people from Japan to come and look at my manufacturing place and give comments or changing it. So a lot of collaboration happened in technical space, concept to launch area. So when you're looking at concept to launch, raw material to delivery, and order to cash, I keep the order to cash because there was no cash in pandemic. But still, there were a little bit support from the OEMs and other suppliers. But the raw material delivery was not having much of collaboration happening. We were just existing with what we have, less number of people trying to produce what is minimum required. But there is a lot of work happening on concept to launch in view of collaboration, technical. So we couldn't say somebody that my collaborator will go for manufacturing. I don't know. But can we guys work on some of the technical ideas to prepare a value? So when pandemic is gone, it's open, we go to OEM and talk to them. If you approve this product or a concept or an idea or a value, that's a huge manufacturing out there. So that kind of collaborations we could do 6 or 7. And I can proudly say we are with 3 JVs now. They're all between 300 to 500 crore level of business, which are through those technical collaborations.
I was just going to ask Meenakshi, did you ever consider building yourself like a digital twin of your factory to maybe simulate different manufacturing processes or even your different products? I mean, did you ever consider doing that?
Well, maybe I called doctor to talk about digital twin to understand the first time, because our chairman said, can you go ahead and look at it, come back to me. So we could do only a white paper level, and then we did that very honestly. But after the pandemic opened, now our people are trying to do what you can do with what you have. We didn't do much investments in manufacturing right now. What can you do with what you have? Today, if you come to our facility, we have 55 robots. But then we were not taking all 55 data and analyzing it. Now that's what we are doing. We are not investing on 56 robo. We are not bringing up a big data center, but we are taking 10 important robo data, trying to analyze it and see what can I do with this and go back. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, perfect. I mean, you are an ideal candidate for something that NVIDIA has to offer. So I'm going to touch base with you later. But yeah,
we'll certainly do that.
There you are. There's a potential deal in the making. Yeah. I can see there.
Anytime. There is a collaboration out there. Yeah.
Great, great, and this is what it's all about, right? This whole industry is about, it's increasingly about more and more technology, as Mohan also mentioned, software on the software side, and also collaboration and whatever, all the challenges, all the disruptions is also kind of leading to acceleration of collaboration and various different ways of doing business. Of course, all with a focus on not only growth but sustainable growth. So now we were talking about AI and ML. I mean, both the OEMs here present here, both homegrown OEMs, have really kind of, from what I observed, have really put in a lot of efforts in incorporating them in their vehicles, not only to make them fancier, but more importantly, to add more value, and also enable the OEMs to kind of keep them contemporary, at least some parts of them contemporary with, let's say, things like over-the-air updates and things like that. So let me now bring you in here, Mohan. Could you share your perspective on how, let's say, the further kind of adoption of these, of software technologies in the vehicle? How different could the vehicle become in the coming years from what we know it as today? And let's say in this context, if I may ask you, the adoption trend of AI and how it is, perhaps AI is also pushing the boundaries in the automotive industry.
So as an understanding, this is not yet in India today, but let's say what's going to happen. So most aggregates in a car are going to become more and more intelligent with more processing power that will lend themselves to AI. So for example, the Altroz DCA that we launched recently has AI to make sure that it learns the user's habits and also realizes if the user has changed from person A to person B, and then actually decides how the new driver needs to drive the car and aligns accordingly. Okay. Then, for example, it also has a learning mechanism to know if, let's say, the hydraulic valves are choked or there's some foreign particle in it. and it can realize for itself and clean itself. And this is only one example. So in most areas like this, it is going to be more and more. Let's say even in the BS6 scenario, so if you have your, let's say, gasoline particulate filter choked, the vehicle does understand it and it goes and cleans itself. So there are many smaller examples like this, but the larger examples will come with added technology like ADAS and vehicle to infrastructure, infrastructure to vehicle. And when those things start coming in, then you will find that the driver in the car starts becoming less and less significant, or less and less significant player in terms of how the car is going to behave. Yeah.
Right.
So all the environment around is going and becoming more and more advanced, and this is going to reduce at least the stress on the driver is a positive way to put it. And therefore the driver themselves can start doing other things while they're getting from point A to point B. And in the extreme case, there'll be no driver. So it will be the car that's going from point A to point B itself. And if it happens to be a public vehicle, then, for example, the last mile transportation is a very good place to apply this, where there could be vehicles flying on pre-decided routes and that don't need a driver at all.
So, and also vehicles were in controlled environments like big campuses, things like that.
Yes, and big campuses like ours and Mahindra's. So, I mean, the sky's the limit. So you just say what you need, and technology is there. And so some of this, by the way, is also going to come in as a pay per use. So there could be lots of facilities in the car which are already there when you buy the car. They become available to you only if you pay.
Okay, on a subscription basis.
On a subscription basis. So it could even be something as small as, if you want to turn into a driveway and then you need assist from the car to help you to get inside. Let's say you want to reverse into your gate and you find it difficult to do it yourself, the car can do it for you. Maybe at a charge of, let's say, 200 rupees or 500 rupees, the car can do it for you.
Okay.
Those services start coming in slowly. And so the possibilities are endless.
Interesting. And now, like you mentioned, these examples in the recently launched automatic Ultros, the DCT technology, which you call it DCA in your case. In Mahindra's case, I mean, Dr. Shankar, when I saw the XUV 700 first in August last year, especially when I saw the AX variant, first thing that came to my mind is again, like a panel discussion I was moderating in China, where one of the panelists, this was a few years ago, I think in 2018 or so, and they mentioned that the car will be a mobile on wheels. And when I saw your instrument cluster, that huge slab in the XUV 700, it reminded me of that. And not like Mohan mentioned about the trend of ADAS. And I think with the XUV 700, you are trying to offer almost a 1.5 L1.5 level ADAS feature. So how do you see this trend progressing from here, Dr. Shankar?
Sure. I want to share two examples. One is when you look at EVs. Suppose I'm looking at not just AI alone, AI convergence of AI with a couple of other very useful technologies. Say I have a car or a SUV in our case, which gives say only 200-250 kilometers. That's a range. But I want to go from Chennai to Bangalore, which is 350 kilometers. So I'm wondering, I can do only 250, but 350 is the actual distance. So assuming my car is a smart and connected car, I can still manage it, because definitely I'm going to take a couple of breaks for lunch or coffee and things like that. I know where the charging stations are located. I know exactly what is the residual charge. Everything can be so nicely planned that at the beginning of the trip, if I say instead of my regular 5 hours drive, I am ready to spend extra 1 hour, 6 hours, I want to do 350 kilometers. I know the map, where the charging stations are, their availability, every single thing. I can very comfortably, without any range anxiety, I can reach my destination with a vehicle that gives me say only 200 or 250 range. That is possible. So that is one very low-hanging fruit, very easy way in which we can use 2 or 3 of these technologies to create a nice hassle-free experience for our customers. Second is an example where The data was not asked, but we are able to extract very useful insights from the data. This is the road safety, RASI we call it. So there is an organization which collects a lot of data from the various road accidents. They have been doing it for over so many years. They have lots and lots of very rich data on what happened, what triggered the accident, what we can learn from that. So analyzing that data greatly helped us to bring in a lot of safety features. And the data is so vast that unless you use analytical tools, it's very difficult to extract the right insights from that.
Right.
So these two things gave me a lot of confidence that this is only the tip of the proverbial iceberg. There is so much one can do by just spending more time with the data that's already available with us. I think it's a very big opportunity that's right in front of all of us.
And I'm sure with your with the connected vehicle features in your XUV700, I'm sure you'll get a lot of data, not only to keep this model kind of as contemporary as possible, but also as input for the vehicle under development in the future. Right?
Our connected vehicle platform like DigiSense goes into our tractors also.
Tractors also.
Helping the farmer with the data like weather, the demand for the product, so many things can come together and really make life much easier for the farmers. So we are looking at that kind of across multiple products and platforms, how we can leverage data and analytics there. So I think the opportunity is huge, and the technology is here and now. It's already there. We
here
just
and
have
now,
to
absolutely.
and start using it.
And opportunity is huge for technology companies also, and including companies like NVIDIA, which as I mentioned, have to have the responsibility. I would say not only the opportunity but the responsibility to play the enabler's role. So at this stage, we are. In fact, I just took a look at the watch. We are just nearing the end of this session. But let me bring in. I request my colleague to share the fifth and the last question of poll question of this session.
While we answer the poll question, I mean, Dr. Shankar, you very rightly pointed out, like autonomous tractors as a concept. I'm sure you guys also were working on it. I'm not really updated, but autonomous tractors, if you think about it, they don't have the complexity of an autonomous car. Like you could just define the field and, they don't have like traffic. They don't really have people going across, the security and the safety is of little criticality there. But the application of an autonomous tractor is so amazing. You just define the field and the tractor plows it, and then you go and you come back and it's sorted. So the application itself is like amazing.
You're right. In fact, we started our program on autonomous tractors almost 3-4 years back, actually. And we thought that
I was there, Dr. to see that demo.
Also. Yes, you have seen that. I will share the videos with Nikhil also. It was very effective because if you happen to go to the villages, you see there is an acute shortage of manpower. Most people have moved to nearby towns. So the farmer is stuck there. He has a fertile land. Many times I went around Maharashtra during sugarcane harvest season. Sugarcanes are there, but people are not there to help the farmer to harvest them. And it's a very narrow window of time. He has to do it within the time. So it's very tough. That's what gave us the idea that we should bring technology at a very affordable cost to the farmers. And one of the early things we started was a semi-autonomous, a small compact tractor. So that's something we found it a lot more meaningful than a driverless tractor on the Indian roads. So we started with that, and we have learned quite a bit from that experience actually.
Indeed, the technology adoption is happening across the board, and including in the fields, far away from the urban centers where we see the fancy cars and other vehicles. But indeed, it's technology is increasingly playing a crucial role in this industry and helping drive this industry not only to move ahead but make it more exciting and interesting as well. So on that note, we have just overshot the time we had for this session. But as almost always, I'm left with a few questions unanswered, but then that will be for another occasion. So thank you, gentlemen, very much once again for your participation. Mr. Mohan Savarkar, Dr. Shankar Venugopal, Meenakshi Sundaram, Nikhil Parab. So thank you very much. Unfortunately, Mr. D. Suresh, CEO of Spark Minda Technical Center and CTO of the Spark Minda Group, at the last minute had to drop out because of an exigency. So, but I'm sure we'll have him on another occasion. So indeed, very, very valuable and interesting viewpoints all of you have shared, both from OE, not only a passenger vehicle OE, but from a farm equipment manufacturer OE as well as, and a key tier one perspective, as well as a technology company perspective as well. So thank you, gentlemen, very much. Wishing you all the very best. And to all the attendees, I'm pretty sure you must have found this session very interesting, and I got a lot of food for thought and valuable inputs which you can leverage for in the future. So thank you very much once again. Till we meet again on another for another interesting discussion, another event on ET Auto. Take care and stay safe, and best wishes on behalf of ET Auto. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, participants. Bye bye. All the best.